Well, ladies and gentlemen, from across the galaxy, maybe from a galaxy far, far away, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, Disney Star Wars has been, let's just say, lackluster, to be kind. You could go so far as to say they don't know their own lore, they don't know their own canon, or they simply don't care and have no problem abusing it or making a mockery of it for their own intents and purposes, and to push any one of their many agendas that they have used Star Wars as nothing more than a vehicle for, versus respecting the fans, respecting the lore, and taking a $4 billion paid for franchise and ended up turning it into something that is probably worth less than the paper that the contract is actually written on at this point, because no one's watching this stuff anymore, and there's a lot of different reasons why. Many of it's just the fact that there seems to be no one over left at Disney Star Wars and Disney Lucasfilm in general that has any kind of creative talent left in them whatsoever. And if they do, they aren't able to express it in any way, any meaningful way, shape, or form, because guess what? It's all about self-inserts. It's all about all this kind of nonsense pandering, and it's all about, well, the same basic nonsense of wham and power forward. And it wouldn't even be that so much that would be an issue with it. I don't have a problem with a coven of witches and it being all female. Again, it's kind of the way a lot of these stories have gone over in time and time again. But the problem with this is there's been things that have been talked about. There's been certain established lore that certain things are extremely difficult, that they're nigh impossible, and that only certain legendary characters were allowed to do them. And at the end of the day, the Acolyte, Leslie Headland, Kathleen Kennedy, Dave Filoni, and Bob Iger have no problem violating any of that kind of stuff, and have no problem completely and totally desecrating it, either through voluntary action or the lack of or the very inaction that they've not taken to absolutely prevent and stop any of this stuff. Because last I heard, Dave Filoni was supposed to be the lore master over there at Disney Star Wars and was supposed to protect things from this happening, and this kind of nonsense, contradictions, and absolute insanity. But of course, boys and girls, we know that was nothing more than a front to appease some Filoni simps out there that still for some reason think that he's going to produce you good Star Wars. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is not going to happen. That is never going to happen, and I have no more evidence to present to you as of today than this right here. The Acolyte makes massive retcon to Star Wars lore, reveals lesbian space witches created life from the Force long before Darth Plagueis did. Because yes, boys and girls, if you remember, one of the things that makes Anakin Skywalker so special, what makes him the chosen one, is a very failed experiment by old dear sweet Darth Plagueis the Wise, who was so advanced in his ability to control the Force and modify and mess with and manipulate metachlorians inside of people's bodies that he literally could prevent people from dying. And even in the Darth Plagueis novel was revealed to have tried to manipulate and intentionally create life using the Force, only to find out that his experiment had not necessarily failed, but that 7 years later, the Force decided to use the power that he collected to do this and push back against him, creating Anakin Skywalker, thus creating the Force. So now, after Plagueis' technically failed attempt to create life by forcing it through the Force, now, ladies and gentlemen, where Darth Plagueis the Wise, who was supposed to be the most powerful at controlling and manipulating the life force out there, well, now, ladies and gentlemen, this unknown, unnamed, and completely and totally made up by Leslie Headland coven of witches, this particular witch can now do it, and do it exactly the way she wants it to. So she's better than Darth Plagueis, boys and girls, which means her creations are better. Forget the past. Kill it if you have to. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's certainly what they seem to be doing to Star Wars and all things going forward with this. We're going to check this article for Bounty and Comics, give you all of the juicy details of exactly what is going on, because I, unfortunately, have watched these episodes, and let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, if it's not even for all of the other agenda-driven nonsense in this, it's not even for the suspicious lack of any strong, good female or strong, good male Caucasian resembling characters. No, it's the show constantly contradicts itself The writing doesn't make sense, and the only good couple of characters that are in the entire show are not allowed to shine in any way, shape, or form, and are held back completely and totally by horrendous writing that clearly is only from a one world perspective. So we're going to get into this article from Bounding Comics, show you all the juicy details, and tell you exactly what is going on with the latest retcon and absolute destruction and devastation to the great lore that Star Wars once had. But before we do, if you do enjoy our content, hit that like button, share with all your friends, subscribe and or follow if you have not already, and let us know what you think about all of this down below. And there you have it, Star Wars fans. In a sadly but unsurprising delivering on previous whispers, the third episode of The Acolyte has made an absolutely massive, ostensibly identity politics motivated change to one of the franchise's most pivotal pieces of original pre-Disney lore. In current Star Wars canon, the power to create life via the direct manipulation of the Force is considered a near impossible feat, even for the most storied of its users. So much so, in fact, that prior to the Acolyte's third episode, there had only ever been one individual who's reportedly able to pull it off, the infamous Sith Lord Darth Plagueis. Did you ever hear the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise? Darth Plagueis was a Dark Lord of the Sith, so powerful and so wise he could use the Force to influence the midichlorians to create life. He had such knowledge of the dark side that he could even keep the ones he cared about from dying. The dark side of the Force is a pathway to many abilities, some considered to be unnatural. He became so powerful, the only thing he was afraid of was losing his power, which eventually, of course, he did. Unfortunately, he taught his apprentice everything he knew. Then his apprentice killed him in his sleep. Ironic, he could save others from death, but not himself, which of course any of you guys that have seen the prequel trilogy, of course know the conversation that happened between Anakin and our dear sweet Palpatine. So interestingly, in the no longer canon pre-House of Mouse Star Wars Legends era, it was established that not only had Plagueis actually been able to create life from the Force, but that he was directly responsible for the immaculate conception of Anakin Skywalker himself. As recalled in the 24th chapter of the author James Lucunia's Darth Plagueis novel, drunk on a newfound power, then he attempted to even more unthinkable act to bring into being a creation of his own, not merely the impregnation of some hapless, mindless creature, but the birth of a forceful being. The ability to dominate death had been a step in the right direction, but it wasn't equivalent to pure creation. And so he had stretched out, indeed, as if in an invisible transubstantiated, to inform every being of his existence and impact all of them. Munanoid or insectoid, secure or dispossessed, free or enslaved, a warrior having a banner in triumph on a battlefield, a ghost infiltrating a dream, but ultimately to no end. However, far from being a bust, Plagueis eventually comes to learn 9 years later that his actions resulted in the Force pushing back against his plan by using his energy to conceive not a Sith legend, but a human being able to restore balance to the galaxy. Regardless of this fun bit of EU trivia, thanks to the Acolyte showrunner Leslie Headland, Plagueis is no longer the first Force user to manipulate the universe and life energy to create life. Instead, the honor now belongs to the newly introduced leader of an unknown band of Force-sensitive witches who, for some bizarre reason, aren't Night Sisters because, sure, Disney, why not? Mother Ancea was portrayed by actress Jodie Turner-Smith. As detailed in the show's third episode, decades before Plagueis was even began his study of the Force, and Ancea used the Force to bring life to embryos within her fellow witch mother Cora, the pair of which would soon after be birthed into the world as the series protagonist May and Osha, in case you decided to miss the show, which I don't blame you, and based on the viewing numbers, everyone else did too. So there you have it. Lesbian space witch covens being given credit for a lore-impactful act originally done by a powerful male character beloved by the fans of the franchise's pre-Disney audience. The Force is female indeed. And yes, boys and girls, the rumors were true. Chris Gore was absolutely right on everything, and it was absolutely an abomination. And you know, the worst part about it is the retcon and the changing of everything else, I don't even think is probably the worst part about that episode. And eventually Jack Tarlad and I will get around to reviewing it and giving it an actual proper review for you guys on these episodes. But one of the things that I thought was so funny about it is this whole episode tries to portray the Jedi as these bad people that are coming in and trying to steal away the children, right? And all of this other kind of nonsense. Well, what's funny about that is actually this actress, this character right here, the one that looks apparently like a Night Sister, and then of course this one over here who actually did it, she even tells her, right, you don't want the Jedi to find out what you did or how the children were conceived, right, because you did it in some unnatural, unholy, some dark Force power way, just like what Plagueis tried to do as well. So it's one of them situations where, like, now it's a kind of thing here where they're trying to make the Jedi look out to be these bad people, but we know they were using mysterious, evil, kind of dark magic in order to even create these children. So, like, the whole concept of all of this kind of stuff is absolutely ridiculous. It's stupid. It's overdone. And it's just more contradiction, nonsense, wham and power stuff. They try to make the Jedi look out to be these evil, bad people that you're supposed to hate. Where it turns out, guess what? The Coven of Witches were actually doing a bunch of evil, underhanded shit to begin with the entire time. So this is just more showing the fact that they don't care about Star Wars. They never cared about the lore. They certainly never cared about any of you out there that are fans of this kind of stuff in any way, shape, or form, because they have no problem devastating and destroying every single bit of lore, canon, and everything you loved about Star Wars simply to push their agenda, which is nothing more than wham and power nonsense. So boys and girls, make shame great again. Make your voices heard. Don't watch this show. Roast it, laugh at it, make fun of it, criticize it, be critiquing of it, and absolutely roast these fools into oblivion, because we are making shame great again. And boys and girls, everybody over at Disney Star Wars deserves to be shamed for the absolute abomination, retcon, lore-destroying show that is The Acolyte. Another huge waste of hundreds of millions of dollars by the Walt Disney Company.